Well, schools are working directly and law enforcement partner directly in communication. So the report of an incident, and that's a call emanating from Lewis and Clark High School, was reported to the district office approximately at 11:15. What we know is, unfortunately, this was a hoax. It was a fake phone call indicating that there was some type of active shooter on the LC campus. That's what we know right now. Again, this is incredibly tragic for our kids that they have to endure this type of solicitation of fear and panic in our community. All indications is that law enforcement responded with incredible speed to our schools. We're always operating off of an abundance of caution, so even if there are any indications that the call might not be real, we're always going to address it like we need to be very serious that it could be real. So abundance of caution is always the approach. All indications at this point is that the training, our systems, our protocols to respond as quickly as possible, those all functioned the way that we would hope they would have. Again, our coordination with law enforcement, their response to our school district was incredibly swift. They've been on site making sure, again, out of abundance of caution, that everyone's safe. So Lewis and Clark was put into lockdown. SPD responded on site there. Out of abundance of caution, North Central High School was also put into lockdown, and SPD responded to that site as well. So from the time the call came in to our central office, about 20 to 25 minutes later, we had messaging going out to families. We know that not only is this incredibly terrifying for our students and our staff to be victims of this type of prank, but we know that it's terrifying for families. I'm a dad in this school district. I know people in this room and people watching are also parents, and there's nothing scarier than thinking that our children might be in harm's way. So we're trying to get messaging out. That's always the goal, to get it out to families as quickly as we possibly can. All indications is that timeline was around 20 to 25 minutes to send emails, text messages, to try to let people know this was a prank. We have heard unconfirmed reports that a similar hoax happened in the state of Montana almost at the exact same time. So we don't know whether or not they're related, but we have heard unconfirmed reports from law enforcement that similar hoaxes are happening around the country, and one may have in fact happened at the exact same time.
Are the schools still in lockdown?
Currently North Central is out of lockdown. LC, just out of an abundance of caution, law enforcement are on site. They're continuing to do that work. Again, out of an abundance of caution, there is no indication that this is anything other than a hoax at this time. There's no reason to believe that it's anything but that. But again, we take every single one of these extremely seriously. We follow our protocols, we follow our trainings. All indications is that those systems and structures worked, and they worked very quickly. So again, our local law enforcement, the Spokane Police Department, responded with incredible speed to our schools.
Will school be in session for the rest of the day?
We will. We'll come out of lockdown. We'll have additional support staff on site. We know that this is going to be a traumatizing event for our students, and so we'll have additional resources and supports on site to help them process through the day's events.
And can the call come into LC directly and to North Central directly to both of those schools? Why was LC shut down and then North Central? Was it just the calls came in at different times?
So the information we have now is that the prank phone call came in indicating an active shooter at Lewis and Clark High School. That's what law enforcement responded to. Out of an abundance of caution, because of the proximity of North Central and just wanting to make sure that everyone heard the information correctly, North Central was also put into lockdown. Law enforcement also responded. Again, this is another example of the level of seriousness that the school district and law enforcement take these incidences and how swiftly we are working to coordinate to respond.
We're getting reports that Rogers is in lockdown and that SWAT is on the way there. Do you know anything about that?
I can't confirm that at this point. I haven't heard any information that Rogers has been affected.
Well, there was reports of a guy outside with a rifle.
Adam, they received a phone call that there was somebody in the neighborhood with a rifle. They went into lockdown, but there's no confirmation to the accuracy of that statement.
And so we don't necessarily think these are connected.
So
We don't know for sure.
Okay.
the information, and these things happen quickly, and because of social media, the information that I had walking into this conversation and update is that the schools impacted with a lockdown was North Central and Lewis and Clark. Unfortunately, it sounds like other schools may be impacted by an additional hoax. I can't confirm that because I haven't had a opportunity to confer with staff.
What's your message to worried parents out there?
That my heart hurts. My heart hurts as a dad. No kid should ever have to go to school and feel scared or afraid. And unfortunately, there are individuals in this world that set out to do harm, and some of that harm is to create fear and panic. Unfortunately, that is part of the reality that we face in public education is because of technology, because of social media, there are these new pathways to instill fear and panic. And so we'll work very hard, if possible, to determine who's responsible for creating this fear and panic. We'll be working and talking and coordinating with law enforcement around that. Given that there's unconfirmed reports that there may have been something similar in another state, these calls can originate from anywhere, not just in the country, but they can originate from anywhere in the world. So tracking them down sometimes can be really problematic. But certainly my message to families is that we practice, we train, and we prepare for situations that might put our kids in harm's way. And that is terrifying as a parent. But what I can say is all indications are that training, that practice, the coordination with law enforcement, it operated in the way in which we would have hoped it would. And that's from the schools going into lockdown to law enforcement responding so incredibly fast to our schools, to our communication staff here at the district working to get accurate information as quickly as possible. Of course, when you have any indication that your child might be in harm's way, there isn't a scenario in which it's fast enough to get clarity. And so we recognize that, but from what we understand from the time the report came into the district office to the time that we were sending out a district-wide email and text message was around 25 minutes. And one of the things we want to be really mindful of is that the information we are sharing is accurate, and we don't do anything to increase the fear and panic that is occurring. So all indications is that the practice, the coordination, the trainings function the way it should. We'll debrief and evaluate to look for ways to enhance it and improve it even further. But my heart hurts for every parent in our community that this is a reality, not just in Spokane, but this is a reality that our entire country faces.
You mentioned this is a national trend, these calls, or this specific?
Yes, we have heard reports that this is something that is happening across the country where fake calls are coming in. A term that is sometimes used as swatting, where fake calls are reported to try to elicit a law enforcement response to create fear and panic. We are aware of some other school districts that have faced this around the country. Some members of our community may have remembered that a few years back there was another national trend, not necessarily related to shootings, but at that time it was schools receiving bomb threats. In fact, I was a principal at Sacagawea Middle School when that wave was happening. And so this is not something that is new to schools to have to face, but it doesn't matter whether we've experienced it before. Every time is scary for our kids and for our families and for our staffs. And so my heart goes out to them. And I want to continue to message that the training, the systems, the structures that have been put in place to keep kids safe, to prevent these types of incidences should they ever occur, and also to respond to them. Those are things that are constantly on our mind, both as a school district, but also in partnership with local law enforcement.
And you mentioned, having opportunity for kids to talk to somebody if they need to. Do you bring in extra counselors? How does that work?
We do. We have a team of counselors that are a crisis team, and so there's a variety of different crises that may happen across our schools. And that team has specific training that they utilize to come alongside students when they may have experienced some type of traumatic event, whether that's a small group of students or potentially an entire school that's been exposed to something that is that's scary and traumatizing.
When I was at the school, there was like a group of students outside as well while the school was on lockdown at Lewis and Clark. Are those students, are students being picked up, or they told me they kind of just ran out when they heard what was happening at the school.
I haven't heard specific details in terms of students congregating outside. There could have been a variety of scenarios. It could have been kids coming and going. A variety of things may have contributed to that happening, but I wouldn't be able to confirm any specifics regarding why they may have been, a group of students might have been outside.
Would students be excused from school today if they felt the need to leave early due to the events?
We're always working with families to do what they think is best for their student, and so we wouldn't hold any student punitively against not feeling comfortable and wanting to go home and process and be with their family.